President Biden did win handily. He won by 80%, but second up was uncommitted, and that received 13% of the vote. And that was 100,000 votes. Will those 100,000 uncommitted votes get Biden to change his Israel policy?
It looks like he is already changing it and has been moving toward it. I would say one thing about that vote. First of all, Michigan was decided in a very close election last time, so it's a very important state. And it does have a large Muslim American population, which is staunchly anti-Israel, okay? Or they would say pro-Palestinian. Both, of course. But there is an uncommitted vote each time. So it's not as if all 100,000 are a kind of addition this time. Here's the problem he faces. The way something like over 70% of the American public is very much pro-Israel, not pro-Palestinian, and certainly not pro-Hamas. The independent voters and the centrist Democrats that Biden needs to win are very different from the progressives that he lost to this protest vote. So his problem is kind of like the old 7-10 split in bowling. If he goes after the 10 pin, he loses the 7 pin. And if he goes after the 7 pin, he loses the 10 pin. And if he tries to get them both, he could miss both of them. So his problem is going to be whether or not he tacks to the progressives. And there's not just one issue, Israel. There's green energy and there's immigration. And on all of those, the centrists, the independents, have a very different position. So the more he tries to appeal to progressives, the harder he's going to find it with independents and centrist Democrats. And conversely, the more he tries to appeal to them, say with change policies on the border or green energy, the more problem he's going to have with the progressive wing. And it's not that the progressives are going to vote for Trump. It's that they would stay home.
So essentially, he would lose to the couch opposed to losing to a vote for Trump. And I am curious if you could read the tea leaves here for us. What does this all mean come November in the general? Is Michigan a warning sign for President Biden?
I think it has some warning signs for President Biden, and it has some warning signs for President Trump, former President Trump. Trump lost. Trump won overwhelmingly. Both candidates won overwhelmingly. That's not the issue. The issue is what portion of the vote they didn't win in their own primary will come over to them in November. That's what I was just pointing out as a problem for Biden. But it's a problem for Trump, too. The fact that nobody thought Nikki Haley would win in Michigan, much less win the nomination, and still got 26% of the vote. I don't think that all that 26% will come back to Trump in November. There are people who are opposed to him on social issues or women's rights issues, abortion and the like. And there are people who are just appalled by his personality. The things that attract, the charisma that attracts so many of his supporters also repels a lot of educated voters, a lot of suburban voters, a lot of women voters. So he appeals to constituencies that are often considered solidly Democratic. Black male voters are unusually supportive. They're not a majority of voting for Trump, but they like him more than they like most Republican candidates. And Hispanic vote is also much more pro-Trump than it is normally pro-Republican. So Trump has strength, but the vote for Nikki Haley is a warning sign. And the question is, how are they going to appeal to it? I would say one of the big appeals, Brittany, you can see already by Trump coming out strongly in favor of in vitro fertilization. In vitro fertilization is not, which came up as an issue because the Alabama Supreme Court made a decision that destroying an embryo, a frozen embryo, was destroying a human life. And so, although in vitro fertilization is an important issue for some people, the main point here is that it raises the whole abortion reproductive rights issue to a higher profile. And that's a big issue for Democrats. They will run on a lot of that. Likewise, the immigration issue is not just immigration, it's a crime issue. And the death of the woman, the nursing student in Georgia, and this rape of a young person in Virginia, both by illegal immigrants, raises not only the immigration problem, but the crime problem. And that's a big problem for Democrats, even though it's partly an immigration problem, which is national, it's partly a local problem, but that's associated with the Democrats and soft on crime. So I expect we saw a lot out of Michigan, even though there were big wins for both Trump and Biden, because the part that didn't go for the big winners represents ongoing problems that they will have, not on Super Tuesday, but in November.